Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video I am going to give you some new tools to use in Bootstrap to make your web pages really nice looking. So first of all, we have to make sure that we link to the Bootstrap CDN, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. First thing we have to do is make sure we set our language attribute, which is language is just EN. There we go. And then the next thing we have to do is set our charset, meta char set equals UTF-8. Now, the reason why I'm repeating these steps is because it is important that you do this for every Bootstrap website you create. And then the next thing we want to do is bring in our Bootstrap CDN code that I just grabbed from W3 Schools. And I'm going to format this so it looks a little bit better. Tab that in. Close up these lines. There we go. All right, so now we have our Bootstrap CDN tied to the web page. And I'm just going to give my page a title really quick. More Bootstrap. Perfect. All right, now let's start talking about the body. So there are some cool new things that we can do. For example, one thing we can do is create what's called a Jumbotron. Jumbotrons are big boxes, usually used at the top of a web page to kind of, point extra attention at a specific element of the page. So let's create a Jumbotron, and the first one I'm going to create a couple of them. The first one I want to create is one that is outside of a container. That way it'll extend all the way to the edge, the screen edges. So I'm going to create a new div and give it the class of Jumbotron. Oh, Jumbotron. There we go. And then inside, I'm going to do an H1. This is a Jumbotron. And then I can actually put some really any HTML elements in this that I want, H1s, paragraphs, whatever, and it will automatically organize and stylize my Jumbotron or the items inside my Jumbotron better. So I can do, all right, let's go ahead and save this and let's run our code here. Oh, let's go to the desktop, Bootstrap, and I will bring over my Jumbotron. So there we go. Now we have a Jumbotron that spans the entire width of the website. This is my big header right here. This is my paragraph. And notice that it colors the background gray, so it definitely separates itself from the rest of the content of the web page. But there's some other things we can do. First of all, we could actually create a Jumbotron that is inside of a container, so that it will be contained somewhat. So let's do a new div and give this a class of container. And then we'll put this Jumbotron div inside of the container div. Okay, we'll go ahead and delete that real quick. Alrighty, let's see what that looks like. We'll save that and go back to our page and refresh it. So now you can see our Jumbotron is inside the container and we have some edges on our screen. And because this is Bootstrap, this is also responsive web page design. So it grows and shrinks with my screen size, which is exactly what we want, right? All right, let's take a look at one more way to do this. We can create something called a page header. I like Jumbotrons myself, but page headers are pretty cool too. Let's go ahead and create one of those. I'm going to get rid of this code very quickly. And I want to create a new page header. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give it the class of page header. And then inside the page header, I will give an H1. I'll put an H1 in there that says okay, and I will save it. When we go over to our page, we can see that now we have a page header. Basically, it's, my page header, and then there's this line separating the header from the rest of the content. That's another way to do it too, if you're going for a more clean, less flashy look. And just like before, we can actually put this inside of a container. And make our page header really cool looking. So let's save that and go back over here and refresh, and then it pushes it in a little bit, and notice the lines don't extend all the way. That's great. So page headers are pretty cool. Here's another thing we can do. Let's look at some more stuff, and I want to try to get through this a little bit quickly, a little bit faster than I am going right now. Um, let's talk about wells. Let's do a well really quick. So a well is essentially just it's just a text box that actually has some. It looks like it's sunk in to the page. So let me show you what that looks like. Class equals well. Save that. Go here. And you can see it's kind of shaded and stuff, so it looks like it's sunk into the page properly. All right. I'm actually going to put that inside the container. Copy. There we go. I'm going to put everything inside this container. Another thing we can do is we can create tables in Bootstrap that look way better than what we already have used in the past. So let's grab, I'm going to grab one of these example tables because I don't feel like typing out all the code for the table real quick. Sorry, I'm going to copy and paste. All right, so what we have here is we have where we go? There we are. Let me actually tab this in a couple times. Oh, too much. Oh, come on. That's fine. All right, so what we have here is we have a table, and the class equals table dash striped. And so this is going to create a striped table. And then we have the table head, which is a header that we want to give to the table. And then we have table rows with table headers themselves. And then we have the end of the table head section, right? And then we have the table body with the table rows and each with their own table data, just like we've done before. So I'm going to, not copy. I'm going to save that, and we'll open up our page to see what that table looks like. So here's our table now, right? And it looks great. Now look, I'm not doing any coloring. I'm not doing any CSS work. I'm just linking to classes that already exist in Bootstrap, and it's making my website look really good, really nice, and really modern. So, that's the power of Bootstrap. Let's look at some more stuff we can do. Let's see, what else do we want to look at? Let's look at one more thing before I get into the grid. So let's talk about images. So with images, there's a lot we can do with images in CSS. There's a lot we can do with images, just modifying them and editing them before we put them in our web page. But what I want to do is I actually want to show you how to create an image gallery, a responsive image gallery. So the way we can do that is we can actually, I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this. So let's take a look at what I've put in here. It looks like a lot of code, and it really is, but it's actually pretty cool once you see what we're doing here. So what I have is I have a div, and the class for the div is row. And we'll get into this in a minute, what this means. But this is a row of pictures. And then I have a column mid 4, which is, again, it has to do with the grid system, which we're going to talk about. And then I'm giving my individual images this thumbnail class. And the thumbnail class is going to make the picture nice and small, but still something we can still actually see. And then we're giving the image some more information here. We have a link to the image itself. The image is here on this drive, which I'm probably not going to be able to get to. And then we have the alt attribute for the image, and then we have a style, which is 100. We're setting the width to 100%, and we're also giving it a caption. And the caption is some lorem ipsum text. But that's basically every one of these images follows that same pattern, right? So let's go ahead and save this and see what happens. Probably nothing because I don't have access to those pictures. Yeah, but you see how it creates this cool like image gallery setup here. And we could do that with as many images as we want. We can make as many images go across this page as we want to. Now there's some other cool things we could do with images. For example, we could set our make our images a circle. So basically all we do is with the image, we just set the class to be, where's my image? Right there. We set the class to be equal to img hyphen rounded. Okay, and that would make my image a circle. We can also give it, or no, that's rounded corners, sorry. So we can do rounded corners on our image. We can do circles, which would be just image circle. There's all kinds of stuff. And it will make our image a nice circle-y shape, which it's not going to show here because our images aren't popping up. That's okay. And all of this is in the W3 Schools page for Bootstrap images. And you're going to want to use that reference, that resource, when you're building your your web page for this week. Let's talk about the grid system really quickly because the grid system is super, super important. Basically, the way things are organized in Bootstrap is on a system of grids. So the grid is exactly kind of what you might already be imagining. Basically, we're going to section out a web page in a specific set of rows and columns that allow us to put content in those rows and columns very easily without having to worry about the positioning values and moving them around and floating content and all that kind of stuff. And the grid is going to be able to move as it goes, right? So let me show you what a grid looks like in Bootstrap. So let's create a very quick, very easy grid. And this one's going to be a single row, and it's going to have 3 columns, and they're all going to be equal. Okay, so I'm going to do class equals row. So this is going to be my row. Everything inside this div is going to be on the first row. And then I'm going to create other divs inside of this div to make my columns. Class equals col, sm, and 4. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. So column. All right. And then we can actually just copy and paste. So that way we have 3 different columns in this row. Let's go ahead and save that and see what that looks like. Cool. So you see down here we have our page is separated into 3 different columns, right? And we can actually make as many columns as we want. We can do things like changing this to, let's say 3, 6, 3, right? Save. Well, why? That was weird. Refresh. And then we have 3 width, 6 width, and another 3 width. The thing that you have to remember about the column system is it always equals out to multiples of 12. So let's say you wanted only 2 columns. You could do, 6 and 6. Right? So one column takes up half the page, another takes up the other half. Or you can do like 8 and 4, any combination that you want. but it's got to be 12. So you can actually draw out on some graph paper what your website's going to look like and column it out just like this. Let's see. You can also do medium and large columns as well. We've only been doing small columns here, but there are plenty of other options you can use with your columns, and there's all kinds of stuff to get into. Probably more than I want to get into in this video, but just know that each row itself, let's do another row. First of all, each of these columns can have literally anything you want in there. You can, instead of text, you can put an image or, you know, another div with some extra stuff in it. This is just a way for us to organize our website. So let's say I want to do let's copy these. In this row, I want to have four columns, and they're all going to be 3, because again, I have to make sure it is multiples of 12, and I will make them mediums. I think it's MD, right? Yeah, MD. We'll make it mediums. And we'll save that and then see what that looks like. The point I'm trying to make is your columns don't always have to match up exactly. Every row doesn't have to have, each row doesn't have to have exact columns or the exact same columns. So, and because again, it's Bootstrap, this is modifiable. So we can shrink that down and the columns actually stack on top of one another whenever it gets too, too small. The great thing about columns is what we can do is we can create our entire website so that when it's on a big screen, everything spreads out and it looks really nice. When we shrink it down onto a mobile site, it shrinks everything down into one big long column, and we can scroll through the website and still see all of our content, right? So that's how columns will help us build more responsive websites. Now, there's a ton of information about columns on W3 schools. So you're going to want to go through and look at all that information because it's really going to help you to understand how to use this grid system. You need to understand the grid system in order to build the rest of the projects in this class because, again, Bootstrap uses the grid system to organize all of its content. So that's it for me for this video. I'm going to leave it here and let you get started on the rest of the work for this week. You're going to definitely want to review the grid system information that I'm going to give you, and you're going to want to practice. So when you build this next project, it's actually going to be a functional website that is responsive. So you're going to be including images, all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to leave it there and let you go over this information. And if you have any questions, please come talk to me. I will help you figure this stuff out. That is my job. Or send me an email or whatever. Okay. Thank you for paying attention. That's it for me. I'll see you next time.